The Marine Toys for Tots foster care program is bringing hope to children who need it most. Every 2 minutes, a child enters foster care, often with only a small bag of belongings. More than 400,000 children face trauma and uncertainty, many before age 8. This May, during Foster Care Awareness Month, Toys for Tots is creating Room for Joy. In 2025, nearly 375,000 children received comfort through toys, books, and essentials, reminding them they are not alone. Donate now and change a child's life.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Come on, Dick.
Hi, welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DeBarros Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
You know, before we start, Dick, let's put the number out. The call-in number is 800-848-9222. Had to do that. All right, go, Dick.
This week was the turnaround week for President Trump. All the bad news disappeared and the good news surfaced. Start with the fact that the economy turned around. The GDP grew at 2%, which was great, particularly with a blockade going on, with oil prices increasing. The GDP rose by 2%, adjusted for inflation. That's fantastic. And it shows that as we move into the midterms, Trump's numbers are going to command re-election. He's gone from having mediocre numbers going into the election to having very good numbers, despite the fact that there's an embargo going on, that the price of oil has risen over to almost $100 an ounce, and perhaps sometimes more. And the point is that the economy is rebounding, and that's terrific. The second piece of unbelievably good news is that Trump, I think, is now assured of a majority in the House of Representatives. The decision of the Supreme Court to demand an end to majority-minority districts is absolutely fantastic, historic, and will have an amazing impact on the election. Actually, the best comment was by John Roberts, the chief judge.
Oh, yeah.
He said the best way to end discrimination based on race in Supreme Court in congressional districts is to end discrimination based on race in congressional districts.
That was great. That was good.
And it's very clear now that Trump will win the House, because with almost 20 seats flipping because of this court decision, he's in great shape. Now, there are a couple of states that are not yet reapportioning. I think they'll be forced to do so anyway. They've reapportioned, but they'll not do the elections until 2028. But I think that they'll be forced to do them this year. But basically, Trump won the House of Representatives this week. And the third thing that happened this week that was incredible is that one and maybe two key Senate races turned in Trump's favor. The big one was in Maine, where Susan Collins, believe it or not, is still considered a Republican.
Is she really?
That's what's important, is that she votes to organize the Senate as a Republican, and she makes the minority leader the majority leader. It isn't so important how the senators vote. It's what they call themselves and what caucus they participate in.
Right. I actually said to Dick yesterday, I go, yeah, but she's like a Democrat anyway. But that's no good. He goes, no, because that's the number, to keep the majority in the Senate.
The very first motion on the floor of the Senate is who's going to be the majority leader and who's going to be the minority leader. And if the senator votes Republican on that, it almost doesn't matter how else they vote on this stuff. They can go back and forth. But the committee chairman, the staff, the investigative, the subpoena power, all that stuff stays with the majority. And Susan Collins votes for that to be Republican.
Good.
But more importantly, in the state of Maine itself, where Collins is running for her 98th term in the Senate, seems like 98, the Democrats put up a guy named Graham Plattner as their candidate. And
is this the Nazi guy?
Yeah. And the Republicans were highly critical of him. And the governor of Maine, who was an independent, insisted that Janet Mills, a former congresswoman from Maine, become the Republican candidate. And she was all set, but she withdrew this week. She becomes a Democratic candidate, but she withdrew this week because she didn't have enough money. And that leaves Graham Plattner as the Democratic candidate for senator.
And this guy has a tattoo on his chest.
A Nazi tattoo.
A Nazi tattoo. And, I didn't know it. I was drunk. And, okay, whatever.
And he claims that it got put on by some students and he didn't know what it was.
Yeah, sure.
But it's been sitting there on his chest
for 40
morning
years.
and night for 40 years.
Yeah, whatever.
So you might notice at some point he says down to contemplate his own belly button and he'll end up seeing Adolf Hitler. So,
God.
This guy has no chance of winning. The Democrats...
Well, hold on. Wait a second. And I thought about this as we go over the story the last 2 days. You're wrong. You could be wrong about that because the Democrats don't care if he's got a tattoo.
No, it doesn't matter. He can win the primary. But he's never going to win the general election.
Okay.
Because
you need independence.
They're not going to elect a Nazi to the U.S. Senate.
You never know.
As a Democrat, they're not.
These people, I know.
This isn't going to happen.
Because the independents aren't going to come
with that seat safely in Republican hands, it will now be almost impossible for the Democrats to win the Senate. And just in case Maine doesn't do it, North Carolina can do it. The governor of North Carolina is a guy named Roy Cooper. And during COVID, the NAACP sued the governor and the state, saying that you are overcrowding the prisons, and that is subjecting the inmates to an unacceptable health risk because of COVID. And we demand that you release inmates so that they're not subject to dangers from COVID. And in response to that lawsuit, Cooper released 3,500 inmates from North Carolina prisons.
Oh, is this what the girl...
One of those inmates killed a foreign exchange student who was 23 years old.
On the train.
She waited on a light rail line in the Charlottesville area, and in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And Cooper was leading in the polls. He still is. But he's not going to win. He's going to lose. Because he released 3,500 inmates, prisoners, and then one of them committed murder again. This is just like This is just like the case in Massachusetts, which completely flipped control of the country for a year.
What case was that?
What?
What case are you talking about?
I'm forgetting the name.
Oh, okay.
No, the black guy who anyway.
Doesn't matter.
So you're not going to lose that seat in North Carolina that's now held by a guy named Tom Tillis, who is still theoretically a Republican, and he screws Trump every chance that he gets. But still he is a Republican, and he's retiring, thank God. And now it's clear that most likely Cooper is not going to take that seat. A guy named Micah Whatley, who is in the Republican National Committee, is the Republican candidate, and he'll now probably beat Cooper. So you have two Senate seats, one in Maine and one in North Carolina, that are flipping, that will not change. They'll remain Republican seats, Maine and North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And with that, it is almost impossible for the Democrats to take control of the Senate. So you combine that with the racial gerrymandering case, and you have no possibility that Trump is going to have to face a hostile Congress.
And another 14 impeachments and everything else.
Trump just won the midterm elections this week. That is absolutely incredible. A combination of the majority-minority district decision and the flipping of and the lack of flipping of the Senate seats in North Carolina and in Maine virtually assured that Trump will control the Senate and the House. Now, what's going on in the House is that originally the court heard arguments on the minority-majority decision, and it looked like they would overturn it, as they ultimately did. But then the liberal judges, Sotomayor and the other two, Elena Kagan, got together and slowed down the process. They said it's taking us too long to write the dissenting opinion. We know we're going to lose the case 6-3, The vote has already been decided in the court, but we want the right to issue a full minority opinion. And they dragged it out and dragged it out. And as a result, many of the states that would have to reapportion under that decision will not have time to do it because they've already held their primaries or the legislative deadlines are looming. And therefore, there are two kinds of states that are subject to this. Some states, like Louisiana, say, the hell with the deadlines. We're not going ahead with an election for congressional seats until the maps are redrawn consonant with the decision. And then there's Georgia and there's South Carolina that are saying, no, we're going to wait till next session. We won't do this until 28 because we won't have time. And some states are in one category and some are in another. But you can see the handwriting on the wall. Trump is going to absolutely have a fit and tell those states that are saying we're not going to have time to do that, you better do it. And he's going to say, who cares if there's an election that doesn't count? Who cares if people voted in the primary election? Make them do it again so they vote twice and rehold the election. And I believe that all these states are going to be forced to reapportion this year, and the results will be this year. I think that some states will object, and they'll posture, and the Democrats will say, we're never doing that, and this is an unfair imposition on voters. But that's all minor. That's all going away. I think that ultimately Trump will say, we're not going to have a Congress that's elected unconstitutionally. We're not going to have a House of Representatives based on district lines that have been ruled unconstitutional and discriminatory based on race. We're not going to do it. We'll have the elections on new lines, even if it means some of these states have to delay their reapportionment.
Well, if the states, it's up to the states to reapportion, is that correct?
Yeah, but these are all Republican states.
They are all Republican?
All Republican states.
Then my
the
question.
Republicans have a government, and they have a majority in the
legislature. Okay, because I was going to ask.
So this is a slam dunk for Trump to say, you got to reapportion, and you got to do it before the election, and you got to hold the election of 2026 on constitutional grounds, not on unconstitutional grounds. That's going to have an enormous impact. You remember Benny Thompson? He was the chairman of the Rump Committee on January 6th, that resulted in those convictions. Well, he's as partisan a Democrat as you can possibly get. He's black. He's from Jackson, Mississippi. And he's elected by a majority white district that got gerrymandered into a majority black district under a procedure that is now unconstitutional in light of the Supreme Court ruling. Benny cannot possibly win re-election under fair lines. He can only do it in the gerrymandered Jackson, Mississippi district. So Benny is meat. He's history. He's not going to get reelected. And you've got a whole series of Democratic congressmen who are elected only because of the gerrymandering of the seat. And the Democrats are now saying, okay, we don't agree with it, but the court has ruled 6-3 that they were elected from unconstitutional districts. But we're not able to redraw the lines in time, and they have to conduct the election under the old rules. And Trump is going to say no, and he's going to go over the heads of the governors and go over the heads of the congressmen, the senators, and they're going to say, no, if people have to vote twice, if you have to nullify the results of an election, if you have to change the legislative deadlines, who cares? It's far more important that these seats be elected according to the Constitution, not according to the minority decision.
I know you mentioned this, but when were these lines drawn?
All different
in the
years,
70s?
but mainly in the 60s and the 70s.
70s.
The history of this is very interesting. In the Voting Rights Act, it became clear that while blacks were permitted to vote, they really did not have representation in Congress commensurate with their numbers. And you found states that were 50% or 45% black, but they elected whites. And that was because of the residual effect of racism and the historical difficulty in getting black voters to vote. And as a result, you have about 20 seats in the House of Representatives right now that are Democrat and ought to be Republican. When you look,
how many? 20?
20.
Mm-hmm.
And out of 435,
mm-hmm.
so it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And if those elections were fairly conducted, the Republican would win almost all of them. So the Democrats have absolutely now been screwed by the court. It doesn't matter what other decisions the Supreme Court makes. It doesn't matter if they rule against Trump on everything else. They have effectively delivered control of the House of Representatives to Donald Trump, now and for the future.
Well, you could say that the Democrats have been screwed, but you could really back it up and say that we've been screwed by the 70s and the 60s and 70s. The
gerrymander was put in place.
That's screwing us.
To try to stop the Republicans from fairly representing.
Why did back then Republicans allow that to happen?
They couldn't. They didn't control the government. They were controlled by... it was either controlled by Democrats like
Johnson
Biden, or Johnson,
yeah.
or Kennedy.
Or what about Carter? I don't think he did.
Carter too.
He did do this?
Yeah, he did.
Uh-huh.
And the deal was, we're going to keep these seats in Democratic hands by reapportionment and gerrymandering. And we're going to justify the gerrymandering, saying that unless we gerrymander, these seats will all go white, and the black congressmen will all be eliminated. And 20 black congressmen will lose their seats in Congress, and we can't let that happen.
But then we'll get some great black guys on the right, Republicans that'll come in.
And then...
some real men.
Yeah, well, one of them we're going to have on the show in about an hour, who is running in Connecticut, a black Republican who may well win. But the point is that race can no longer be used to gerrymander districts. Now, the interesting thing about the court decision is it said partisanship can be. You can draw a district that is going to stay Democrat or that's going to stay Republican, as long as there's no racial content to it.
Wait, I don't understand this. Explain.
Well, what the court ruled is that there can be no gerrymandering based on race, but there can be gerrymandering based on party. You can draw a district that's always going to vote Republican or always going to vote Democrat, and that's constitutional. There's nothing against it. But if you're basing it on race, that makes it unconstitutional, and you can't let that continue.
Interesting.
And that's a major decision by the court, and the Republicans won it. But what's happening now is the results of a last-minute maneuver by the liberal judges to postpone this taking effect by saying, oh, no, we don't have time to reapportion. The deadlines have passed. In some cases, a primary has been held.
And who's that, Georgia and South Carolina?
And 8 or 9 other states.
Are saying that they don't have time?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you just said there were 2.
Well, there are 2 that are public, but others have said it as well.
Got it.
And Georgia's a pretty big one. But I don't think that's going to stand. I think that Trump should raise hell about it and is going to raise hell about it. It got obscured because it looked like the Democrats on the court were deliberately dragging their feet, so you could not reapportion in time. But obviously that's now ended. The decision is down. And these old district lines are going away. And if it means that we have to hold a new primary, you have to hold a new election, you have to have new lines, you have to have new petitions, you have to have new candidates, who cares? Make it constitutional. Don't let the Congress be elected, in effect, illegally.
All right. And when we get back, we'll talk about the House ended the shutdown of Department of Homeland Security. So we'll talk about that when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DeBarros Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You know, the station is insuring me as a past advisor to President Clinton and Trump. Well, as soon as the show is over, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call President Trump. I'm going to say, why aren't you raising hell about these Democratic states, these Republican states, delaying reapportionment?
Dick, I just heard about it yesterday. Give me a couple of minutes. Yeah, that's what he's going to say.
I'm going to say, you should go out there and you should say the American people should not be required to vote in elections that are unconstitutional.
Good.
They should not be required to elect 20 out of 435 congressmen from districts that are illegal. And if that means that the state has to hold a new election, so be it.
All right, Dick, I like this. I'll do that. I do Trump all the time.
Stuff, that's okay. And what's more important, following the Constitution or following the deadline of some legislative body? And because we control, the Republicans control the House and the Senate in all of these states, including Georgia and South Carolina, which are overtly saying, we don't have time to redraw. Trump should say, the hell you don't. Of course you have time. And he should pressure them like crazy and make them poster children unless they agree not to. Now, the governor of Georgia, remember, is this guy Kemp, who screwed us in 2020 because he wouldn't call a special session.
Right.
In 2020, just to remind people, Governor Kemp, Brian Kemp, said, we just had a special election in Georgia that elected Ossoff and the other crazy radical Democrat. But we are not going to redraw the lines. We are not going to redo the election. We're going to have to live with that election result for 6 years. And he really screwed the Republican Party with that.
And he was a Republican?
Yeah, he is a Republican. And he should not be allowed to do that again.
You know, it's funny. Dick and I always do mock-up calls for Trump just to make sure when we call him it's good. And I do Trump. All right, Dick, you're right. I could see him saying, all right, Dick, I'll do that. Don't worry. But is that what you think? Hey, listen, by the way, everyone, I'm having dinner with a bunch of people, a bunch of senators. I got Dick Morris on the phone. Everybody puts his phone up and he puts him on speakerphone. It's funny. A lot of times he goes, hey, guys, I got Dick Morris on the phone. He
once did that with Trinity, his
granddaughter?
Granddaughter, yeah.
It's so funny.
So listen, you got some rocks.
Yeah, so we're going to get to on the rocks. You know, on this day she does now, which is great. This is a version of what she does on the rocks. And so far, it looks like Bin Laden on this day was eating a lot of dirt for dinner. Go on, Rock. What you got?
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Rock.
Excuse my voice. Beginning with a quote by T.A. Miles, in the war against the shadows, most are taken by darkness. One way or another, those who shine above it act as beacons to those still fighting, a guide and a source of hope in these chaotic times.
And who wrote that?
T.A. Miles.
Who is he?
He's a writer and a philosopher.
I've never heard of them. That's great. That's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is, and it's fitting for now. So in history, since I'm doing on this day, in 2011, as Doug had mentioned, Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. operations. But that was after a decade of a long manhunt. The United States and the world would have fought to feel
In this case,
safer.
it was a rat hunt.
And he wasn't eating dirt, he was swallowing water, if I remember. Right. They killed him on a boat, I think. Oh, no, they got him in his house, but they threw him in the ocean, didn't they? Something like that. Go on, Rock.
Okay, the United States and the world would have thought to feel safer. However, 15 years later, we're still continuing to fight terrorism, managing security threats with the specific focus, as we all know, on Iran.
And, Rock, you know very well, as to all our listeners, that if bin Laden was still alive, and if we sent that team in there now, and they had him in their sights and they would have pulled the trigger, the Democratic Party would have said, don't. You want a War Powers Act, voting your ability to do that. Right. We won't let you do that. That's illegal.
But it was Obama.
That's just what they would have done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please go ahead, Rock.
Okay, so we have to realize this wasn't just the 10 years. For over 40 years, which is half of the protesters out there, they're half that age, the United States has been active in countering continued hostile actions, as actually affecting with the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which formally designated the Iran as a sponsor of terrorism, which a lot of people don't realize that. So, as I mentioned, these actions from Iran are twice as old as the grossly uninformed protesters whom are causing another action of violence against their home country. So against President Trump in specific, right, and our elected leaders, they are trying to end this evil entity, President Trump, attacking us all in the world through propaganda by the left. I can't even say anymore extreme left, because it's now just become the Democratic Party's norm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, organized by funds. This is what's ironic to me. Organized by funds of the billionaires they so ignorantly protest against, all leading to an increase in wasted energy, manpower, and a deeper division.
And by the way, the gays who would be killed under the Iranian regime.
Correct. Exactly.
Well, that's why we call them useful idiots.
Yeah, but you ask them why, and they can only answer with the chant that was given, not what it means. I could take a long time quoting their answers of why do they want communism, which was the new protest over May Day. Mm-hmm. So they definitely need a lesson. So I just wanted to mention that, too, that on May 1st in this country, it's always, and all across the world, it's always represented spring celebrations, season of growth, renewals. However, this year, May Day was chosen as the day all over the country to protest against capitalism, promoting with signs communism to be the change and the renewal that our country needed. Yeah. But again, ask them why, they don't know. Everyone's aware that there was many celebrities backing this with an agenda, workers over billionaires. But the irony, to me, is blinding, because unfortunately half the country does believe this to be the truth. So the billionaires who funded these very organized coast-to-coast protests, I feel they sat back and watched. There's a term, it's a metaphor called lemmings, which is used for the blind followers leading with no evidence or knowledge. It used to be pegged, for my generation anyways, an idiom, cutting off your face to spite your cut
off your nose to spite your face. Well, the lemming is a little rodent. They jump off a cliff, and all the rest of them follow.
It is a rodent.
Yeah. Let me just spend a moment on the War Powers Act. That's the issue being debated. there was no War Powers Act until the 1970s. And when President Nixon was president, he went ahead and attacked Cambodia and Laos and eventually North Vietnam, all claiming that it was part of his duty as commander-in-chief to win the Vietnam War. And Congress, the liberals in Congress, the Democrats then, said, hey, wait a minute, you cannot preempt the power to declare war and make that optional. It's in the Constitution that only Congress can declare war, and therefore we are going to make you pass a declaration of war in order to continue this war. And as a substitute, President Johnson passed what was called the Tonkin Gulf Resolution, where he fabricated an attack and said the U.S. Navy was attacked by North Vietnam, and therefore it's my constitutional duty to oppose this. But that turned out to be phony. The circumstances of Tonkin were not what they said, and eventually Congress said, you're violating the Constitution.
This is with Johnson.
Yeah, and then Nixon. So,
well, what's interesting to me, too, Dick and Doug, is that when some of the youth was asked, they didn't even have knowledge of the 1979 hostage crisis.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know about the 1980s when they bombed that Marine barracks, killing Americans. Sure. They didn't know about the Khobar Towers or that the Iraq War was backed by Iranian militia.
Or the USS Cole.
Any question asked. Yeah, they didn't know. They just ignored it and said, down with Trump and the regular rhetoric. But I'd like to end this with a quote from Corinthians. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. This passage encourages the believers to have courage during these times of uncertainty, the continued confidence in our leaders, to stay in the light, to stay awakened, not to be insecure or just go back to a place of not being involved or in your community in supporting Trump's mission with Iran. It's very important, no matter how much the uncomfortable feelings are in some raised prices, that will all change.
Sure.
So stay in the light.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you so much, Rock. Excellent.
But let me finish on a more prosaic level, the history of the War Powers Act. After the Vietnam War was over, the liberals in Congress said, we can't have this again. We've got to have a halfway house in between the president unilaterally starting a war on the one hand, and on the other hand, the actual declaration of war by both houses of Congress. And so they passed what was called the War Powers Act, which said the president can initiate this on his own. He does not need to ask Congress. But he does need to inform Congress within a certain number of days. And after that period is over, Congress has the option of voting to give him that war power or not. And ultimately, that's going to be decisive. And that's where the War Powers Act stands now. Mm-hmm. But every president who's had the War Powers Act on his desk has vetoed it. Nixon vetoed it, Reagan vetoed it, Bush vetoed it, Clinton even vetoed it. Because no president has ever permitted the War Powers Act to be passed with his consent. But Congress in every case has overridden the president's veto and has said, no, we insist on the War Powers Act as an institutional protection against arbitrary presidential power. And that is the issue now being debated. But politically, can you believe this? The Democrats have basically become the allies of Iran.
Oh.
They basically have said, we are not going to permit the president to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. We're not going to permit them to stop Iran from being a state, the major sponsor of terror in the world. We are going to inhibit him and use the War Powers Act to try to screw him up and stop him from prosecuting this war.
You got to wonder, whose side are you on?
Well, they're on the enemy side.
Yeah.
Hegseth said it best in the hearing yesterday. He said, the biggest opposition we face is not from Iran, but from the Democratic senators.
And Hegseth also went at that guy. I can't remember. I'm trying to look him up. He went after a guy at a hearing. He says, "How dare you? Shame on you." The guy called what we've doing there Quagmire. And he said, "How dare you? In 2 months, what we've done already, and so perfectly, our military went in and precision-wise and whatnot. You were hard." And he ran at this guy. I can't find what
I think his name was Moulton.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Congressman from Massachusetts.
But that guy, I would have loved to see the camera on him when the Hegseth says, "You should be ashamed of yourself."
But listen, I want to interrupt this by telling you another story based on the anniversary. This is the anniversary of Chernobyl. And in Chernobyl, a major nuclear power plant exploded and melted down. And many, many people were killed. And that is the only permanent accident involving nuclear power that has actually resulted in deaths. And its anniversary is today. The reason I'm telling this story is a personal one. My daughter, Gabrielle Faflin, married a guy named Nick Petrunin. And Nick is Russian, and Nick's father was a nuclear physicist in Russia. And he was assigned to work in Chernobyl after the disaster and to try to stop the meltdown. And he went to Chernobyl, he supervised the cleanup. He did so successfully, he survived, and the Kremlin was very grateful to him for what he did. And they said to him, "What we'd like to do as a way of showing our gratitude to you is to give you a vacation. You can go any place you want." And Nick's father said, "Oh, I'd like to go to the Czech Republic. I'd like to go to Prague." And they said, "Okay, we'll do that." And they paid for his fare, and he had a vacation. Unbeknownst to them, Nick's father defected. And he said, "As soon as I get my foot on free territory, I'm going to try to defect." So he's on his tour bus in Prague, and they passed by the American embassy. It was Thanksgiving. And the tour bus shut, and the embassy was open. And it was the American embassy. So Nick's father got the school bus, got the driver to stop. And he jumped out of this bus, ran to the American embassy, and said, "I want asylum. I'm a nuclear physicist from Russia." And the KGB were after him with guns drawn and chased him into the embassy.
Wow.
But the embassy officer said, "Get off our territory. This is American territory. This man wants asylum, and we're going to give it to him." And the Russians protested. There was an unbelievable fight, damn near shooting. But ultimately, this was under Gorbachev. They didn't actually shoot. And
that could be a war, couldn't it, if they shot in the American embassy?
And Nick's father made it into the American embassy. And
now you have a son-in-law.
And he resettled in America. Mm-hmm. He now lives in Denver. Mm-hmm. He runs a company that makes telescopes.
Yeah. Lenses.
My daughter has become an expert at how to grind the lenses and do it properly. I'm so proud of her. Yeah. And this is the anniversary of the Chernobyl event for me.
That's a great story, Dick. All right, when we come back, we got some more good stories. Okay, we have to take a break.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Bring a date, your squad, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show. sponsored by the Patriot Gold.
I saw you on the phone a second ago. What are you doing on the phone, Dick? What was that all about?
Well, I used the break to call President Trump, and I didn't get him, but I did leave a message on his tape saying that you should intervene and demand that Republican legislatures insist that even if it means holding a primary again and nullifying the results of a first primary under new lines, that these southern states have got to change their district lines so that they're not holding an unconstitutional election.
Okay. We got Betsy McCaughey on the line, and we need to speak with her. Hi, Betsy.
It is great to talk with you today, Dick and Doug. And I'm holding something very interesting here. The Citizens Budget Commission in New York issued a report this week.
I used to work for them.
Chastising Mamdani and saying the goal should be to make New York City and state magnetic, not affordable, magnetic. In other words, attract and valuable businesses, innovators, job creators, residents, and families. And that's exactly what I'm doing for Connecticut. I'm making Connecticut magnetic.
Yes,
Betsy, I used to be the research director at the Citizens Budget Commission.
Really?
I worked there for 5 years when I was a kid. And that's so true. We should explain that Betsy is running as a Republican candidate for governor of Connecticut. And because the income tax in Connecticut is a function of state government, she's demanding that it be repealed, and that as Connecticut residents fill out their DRS forms, they not be required to file state taxes, but the state tax should be eliminated. And more power to you, and good luck.
That's right, and what this is going to do, according to the President's own Council of Economic Advisors, it's not just going to save people money because they're not paying the state tax. They're going to earn much more pre-tax. Their business startups will increase 25%. Pre-tax earnings for the average wage worker in the state will go up $6,700 the first year, because when you announce that you're going to zero, companies start to come back into the state and business activity picks up.
Do they realize that this is a two-way street? The businesses can leave, but they can also come back?
That's right. I realize that. I often hold up a map, Dick, a map of all the states that are going to zero or have already made it to zero, and that's where all the companies leaving Connecticut are going, and New York, by the way, as well. They're heading out of New York and Connecticut and the high-tax states to the low-tax states and the zero-tax states. Being a high-tax state is not an act of nature. You can change that.
What can we do to get you elected?
Well, first come to Betsy2026.com and make a donation, because a donation will fuel this campaign with the public funding needed to reach every voter in the state. It's a simple message. Axe the tax, control the spending. And it's urgent this week, because this week the Connecticut legislature just passed a record budget, $28.1 billion. It's a record high budget with many more giveaways for new child care programs and social benefits. Meanwhile, people are heading out of the state. It's in serious decline.
They're taking their kids out of the state. We don't need the child care program. They're moving their families out of the state.
Of course. The fact is, the best affordability plan is a good job and a growing paycheck. Affordability is not the issue. We've got to make the state a bus ticket,
a bus or plane ticket to Florida or Texas.
Right.
Yeah. Betsy, explain about the matching funds, the state funds.
That's a very interesting question. Yes, Connecticut has an unusual program. Once I raise $340,000 in small donations, the state provides a huge pot of money for each candidate. And in fact, if everyone listening, Dick, who lives in Connecticut right now or in New York, decided to donate a small amount, $50, to this campaign, we'd be funded at the end of the day and on the road to a Connecticut comeback.
And this is serious. I want every listener to sit down and to send a check to Betsy. Give me the info, Betsy.
Yes, Betsy 2026 at 5 Partridge Hollow Road, Greenwich, Connecticut, 06831. Or even easier, go to the website, Betsy2026.com with your credit card. You can do this on your phone. You don't even have to go to your computer. Just type in Betsy2026.com, BETSY2026.com, and make a donation. It will be accepted right away. I will acknowledge it. It's confidential. You won't have to fill out any extra forms after that. And the fact is that these donations, these small donations, fuel an enormous public grant, so that I will be out there all over the state campaigning to phase out this income tax and control spending and make Connecticut a low-tax, high-growth state. That's what our kids and grandkids need. We don't want to watch our families leave Connecticut because there are no opportunities here.
And it's very important to understand that this is one of the rare opportunities that we will have in our lifetime to really lower taxes. If we can get Betsy on the ballot, and all we need here is for $300, $345 per person, and we have $100,000 so far that we've raised, and we just need the extra amount to put us over the top. We need another,
She's got to get to $340,000.
We need $240,000, and literally we could do it in one day with your show, Dick, because so many people listen to this program. It is such an important program. You are such an important opinion leader that if everyone listening who likes the idea of Connecticut being a high-growth state, get rid of that income tax and the spending that is permitted because of the income tax, we will be on the road to real growth in Connecticut.
Yeah, this is so important. It's so crucial. So please do this. And let's make Connecticut a growth state. All the states the top 10 states in the country that are growing, all have no income tax or are eliminating their income tax.
That's right. The income tax is an economy killer. According to the president, his own Council of Economic Advisors has urged this state to eliminate the income tax.
Absolutely. We have to take a break,
Betsy,
but let's go.
the tax, Betsy.
And Betsy2026.com, right, Betsy?
That's right. BETSY2026.com, all one word. And
thank you so
for
much.
this very strong endorsement.
And thank you, Betsy.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Amazon presents Jeff versus Taco Truck Salsa. Whether it's Verde, Roja, or the orange one. For Jeff, trying any salsa is like playing Russian roulette with a flamethrower. Luckily, Jeff saved with Amazon and stocked up on antacids, ginger tea, and milk. Habanero? More like habanero, yes. Save the everyday with Amazon.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
What's the name of the show,
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DeBarros Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So the House ended a 76-day shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. Dick, what do you think of that?
Can you believe that we're in the middle of a war with a terrorist-sponsoring country? A country that is whose strategy is to screw up our airports, make us subject to terror, trying to kill Americans, and the Senate just now passed, after a long parliamentary maneuver, a bill to allow funding for the Department of Homeland Security.
You meant to say, can you believe the Democrats didn't want to fund this?
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Once again, whose side are you on?
Yeah.
That's really what it's about.
And it's very important, as I said at the outset of this show, that this was the week that Donald Trump turned everything around. He has reopened the Department of Homeland Security. He's getting ICE reopened by a special legislative maneuver called reconciliation. And all of this is something that would normally be routine.
Dick,
talk in the middle of a war.
Talk about reconciliation.
When originally the filibuster applied to everything, then when the efforts were made to reduce the deficit, the Congress set up a procedure named reconciliation, where they said that if the House passed one budget and the Senate passed another budget, they could reconcile, and then both of them would be passed by the houses without a filibuster. But there had to be no new spending. It had to be a net zero reduction, and it was a way that the filibuster would not be used to kill budget cutting and budget balancing. And now the Trump administration has already passed one reconciliation bill, which is very unusual, and today it passed a second one, which is totally unheard of. There's even talk about a third one.
Was that the funding bill for the DHS?
Yeah, that's right, and TSA,
right,
Homeland Security as well.
You know, we've been going to the airports a lot, speaking of TSA, and there hasn't been a problem like everyone's talking about. Well, you know, we've flown how many times now in the last month? 10? I don't know about 10, but a bunch of times. And I don't see the big problem with the TSA. Do you? Do you feel that there was any?
Well, we have frequent flyer things. We have we have global entry.
And then hold on. And then Dick is in a wheelchair.
Mosaic. We have every possible gimmick known to
that's
man.
Kind of true too. A bunch of snobs. We're flying snobs. But listen, so Dick through the airport, they put him in a wheelchair, right? We're always first on the plane. We get pushed to the plane. They first on the plane. I pick them up, and right as all the people are looking at us and snickering, I go, "Man, this wheelchair scam is great, isn't it, Dick?" People are trying to kill her.
Damn, they got thrown off the airplane.
But I say it every time. And the other thing I say is to the person next to me, I'll say, "I really hope and pray you have a safe flight." I really do.
The person sitting next to you. Yeah. So what Trump is doing is he's basically telling Congress, I'm going to govern through reconciliation. The reason the Senate won't change the filibuster rule, which it could do easily with a simple majority, is because a lot of Democratic senators, including Tom Tillis from North Carolina, who thankfully is leaving, and Mitch McConnell of Kentucky,
Mumbles
who thankfully is leaving,
Mumbles,
are all saying, hey, wait a minute, we might lose the Senate. And if we do, we need the filibuster to stop the Democrats from doing crazy stuff like admitting Puerto Rico and D.C. as states. So please leave the filibuster in place. And Trump said, do you think just because we're doing that, they're going to do that? Do you think they're going to be as restrained as we are? No, they're Democrats. They won't stop at anything. And all you're doing is leaving the door open to packing the Senate, packing the House, and ultimately destroying our country.
Okay, so we need to take a hard break right now, and we'll see you on the other side of the hour. Thank you.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DeBarros Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. I want to introduce Jonathan DeBarros, who is the Republican candidate for Congress in the Waterbury-Danbury district in Connecticut. It happens to be the district where I live. And this was a district that has historically been Democratic. But there was a brief interregnum in which a guy named Gary Franks was elected to the Congress from that district, a Republican. And I think, he served 2 years or 4 years, very honorably, and then he was defeated for re-election. And now...
Hello, Jonathan. How are you?
And now Jonathan DeBarros.
I'm all right, yourself?
Jonathan, how long was Gary Franks in office?
I believe three terms. I believe he served 3 terms.
3 terms, yeah. So this is a district that really could be a swing district in the House. It's a district that, as I said, is Waterbury, Danbury, parts of I think what are the cities, Jonathan?
Well, we got Meriden, we got New Britain, we got a portion of Torrington, and all the cities in town. The towns within inside the Litchfield area. Goshen, Harrington. We also have Cheshire. We have Southbury, Woodbury.
It's a beautiful area.
Good.
Yeah. Beautiful area.
And
just
why
up
do you
there.
think you have a chance to win this race?
Yeah, I definitely have a strong chance of winning this race. As you just noted, Gary Frank was the first African American actually to win a U.S. congressional district in the state of Connecticut, and he was a registered Republican, born and raised in the city of Waterbury, Connecticut.
It was so incredible. The Democratic caucus, the Black Caucus of Black Democratic congressmen, had 43 members and one Republican, and that was Gary Franks for 3 terms, and then they defeated him. He would literally be a caucus of one. But we have a chance to win that seat now.
Absolutely. I was born and raised in the same city as Johanna Hayes and Gary Franks, the city of Waterbury, Connecticut, which is the largest city in the 5th Congressional District. I have overwhelming support in the urban cities as well as the rural communities. I am a homeowner. Me and my wife, we live in the town of Terryville, Connecticut, which is a section of Plymouth. It's a very rural town, but my wife is from the Puerto Rican community of Waterbury, Connecticut as well. She's a registered nurse. She has a master's degree in nursing, and we both come from the city of Waterbury, and we have overwhelming support in the district.
What's your favorite Italian restaurant in Waterbury?
Well, growing up, a Louis Pizza and Dominic and Pia's is basically a landmark in our city.
I used to live in Waterbury for a couple of years because my wife was a lobbyist for the Daily Newspaper Association in Connecticut, and she was based in Hartford. So she and I would have dinner in Waterbury a lot. Great city, wonderful city.
Yeah, absolutely. And I started my campaign last year. I filed my candidacy in March of last year because I wanted to get a head start against the Democrats inside the city because they don't have a campaign season. They campaign all year round. So
what are you worried about up there, and what do you want? And what do you want to fix? What are you worried about, and what do you want to really pick up?
One of the main things I want to do is bring financial literacy training programs and opportunities instead of handouts to the urban communities. Mm-hmm. For far too long, we have so many people dependent on government subsidized programs like Section 8 housing, SNAP benefits. So instead, I want to create a federal funded mandatory job training program for anyone that's currently enrolled in government subsidized programs to get them back to work, which would include an aptitude test to try to navigate people into the vocational training program.
Yeah, there was a news story on this station in the last hour that blew my socks off. It said the terrible fact that SNAP benefits, food stamp benefits, are now denied to 3 million people that had them before Trump. And doesn't mention the fact that the reason they've been denied them is that their incomes rose and they got jobs. Yeah. And they no longer needed food stamps. Right. And we also are seeing in all over the country, Minneapolis, but also in Connecticut, how these programs of food stamps and earned income tax credit are basically efforts to rip off the taxpayer. And by making them electronic and coding them to credit cards, it becomes staggeringly easy to steal from the state and from the federal government. And
it's also a vote grab. You know what I mean? The Democrats said, we're going to give you stuff, vote for me. And that's how they get voted in, too.
Exactly. Like, I did an easy search on Johanna Hayes', she's a Democrat incumbent that's been in office. She's on her 3rd term. I looked up her church in the city of Waterbury, Grace Baptist Church. her pastor, Pastor Ruth, is driving around in a $300,000 Maybach with a black chauffeur, and they received over $810,000 in federal earmarks from Senator Christopher Murphy and Dick Blumenthal back in March of 2024 to renovate a daycare center that they still doesn't exist.
Wow!
So they're using these federal grant programs for overt fraud. It used to be that there was occasional fraud here or there, or individual miscreants, but the Democrats have so mass-produced it that these programs are fraud programs.
It's like a business. It's like
steal. Yeah.
It's a startup business for some of them.
Yeah, it's a con game. And Nick Shirley, what he exposed is actually happening right here in Connecticut, and I'm pretty sure it's happening in every city across America. This is a Democrat blueprint. So, like the last municipal election, the state of Connecticut, we lost over 29 times. And in the city of Waterbury, I went through the north end of Waterbury, which is predominantly black and Hispanic, and I noticed that they had, the Sunday before the Tuesday election, they had 2 tractor trailers in front of Johanna Hayes' church giving out free groceries. So this is something that has been going on for a very long time, and the only way to fight against it, we got to push back against it with the truth inside these urban communities. Because only 30% of people who live in the cities are on government subsidized programs. So you got 70% of the people who go to work every day. It's just that they're missing swing votes.
So you could win this.
Yeah, we could win this.
Yeah, there's a rating service called Cooks that rates house districts throughout the country. And what is the Cook rating for your district?
It's a D+3 rated district, which means that the last presidential election, the Democrats carried the 5th congressional district by 3 percentage points above the national average. And if you compare that with other districts in the state, like District 4, which is Jim Hines' district, that's out near the Greenwich and Bridgeport area, their Cook PVI is a D+13. So we're the only swing district in the state. We can actually flip this seat. And I only need about 40% of the urban vote split between 4 cities, which is awesome. Because I'm aggressively campaigning in Meriden, New Britain, Danbury, and Waterbury, and all I need is I want 60% of the vote in the cities because I want to factor in voter fraud. So I want to give myself a cushion. And I believe together with the rural areas, we're going to win this seat. As long as the people don't fall for the rhinos that are actually running against me to split the delegate votes at the convention. We could get this job done. So.
Do you have a primary fight?
Oh, you know that. You know the establishment does not want me on the ticket. I'm a MAGA Republican. I support President Trump and his policies, and I'm a Black American from the urban community that can actually get the job done. So they're they're running an aggressive campaign against me with 3 candidates actually. So
come back on my show before the primary. And when is the primary?
Well, the primary will be August 11th, but we have a Republican convention on the 15th and 16th of May at Mohegan Sun, and hopefully I need at least 15% of the delegate vote in order to qualify for a primary ballot access.
Are you going to go by petition if you don't?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I got a whole team. I got over 100 volunteers that's willing to pour into the district from all across the state to get the signatures. I'm going to fight them tooth and nail all the way to August.
You sound great at this.
It's such a real chance to win. This is taking place when the court has just ruled against majority-minority districts, racial gerrymandering. And this is an example of a district that is not racially gerrymandered. And a black can and has won that seat as a Republican. So let's prove that we can do it again. And let's not be beholden to the Democratic map makers to decide who our congressman is going to be.
And you also sound like you have all the right pieces in place. Sounds like you're running a great campaign.
Oh, absolutely. I got great supporters. I'm already endorsed by the National Organization for Veterans for Trump and Veterans for America First and Stand for United Freedom. I got endorsements from the Middlebury RTC, the Kent RTC, the Plymouth RTC, and the Waterbury Republican Town Committee, and I'm looking to pick up some more support along the way.
Good. Well,
and I should mention also the Yukon College Republicans, they also endorse me, so I got a lot of college support too from the young voters.
So let's stay in touch, and let's be on my show as this process evolves. Come on again before the convention, and then if you lose the convention, let me help you get on the ballot by petition, because this is a seat we really can win, and it would be a major demonstration that we don't need gerrymandering to have black Republicans elected who support President Trump.
That's so great. And let us know all your different scheduling, so maybe we can get to a couple.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to state my website. My website is DeBarros4Congress.org, and my last name is D as in David, E as in Edward, B as in boy, ARROSFOR Congress.org. And you can contribute to WinRed and Anadopt. Any small dollar donations from all across the country would be greatly appreciated, because it's going to be put to use for palm cards and yard signs. I don't have a lot of overhead expenses because all my staff are volunteers, and I got Marines, I got veterans, law enforcement back in my campaign, the seniors, retirees that are helping me, and we're going to get this done. It's going to be a grassroots movement.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Well,
we have to take a
break. Look forward to working with you.
And just real fast, DeBarros4Congress.org, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You know, what does Donald Trump have to do? He's got the economy growing at 2%. He's got inflation down to 4 and 5%, only a little high because of the Iraq-Iran war. He has a majority-minority district approval by the Supreme Court that is probably going to give him the House. He's got a Senate candidate for the Democrats in Maine who has a Nazi tattoo on his chest running against Susan Collins. So what does Trump have to do to convince people that this guy's going to win?
He's got to
Trump going to get Congress.
He's got to put a crown on and say, "I'm the king." Did you see him yesterday or the other day? He goes, "They're calling me the king, right? They're calling me the king. I can't get the ballroom fixed, built. I'm the king." That's the way he said it. It's so true. Listen, so they're pretty optimistic about this blockades that definitely will force Iran to reopen the straits. I think part of it in Trump's plan was he knew it was going to choke China.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
choke China and choke Iran.
Yeah, of course, Iran.
Read the story. It's
the U.S. official believed that the Navy blockade will pressure Iran to reopen the strait. The blockade aims to pressure Iran into a better deal regarding its nuclear. I believe China is talking to Iran right now, saying, "You better open this up." So there's a problem there. Iran maintains a defiant stance against U.S. coercion strategies.
If you look at the Iranian economy now, it's currently on the ropes. They're having hyperinflation.
They're drying up.
They're running out of food.
Right.
Leadership of any country, if it cares at all about its people, would make a deal. And Trump is sitting there saying, "I don't want a deal. I don't need a deal.
That's right.
I want a perfect deal or no deal." And Iran has never negotiated with somebody like this.
Right.
Who basically says, "I want it my way or get out of town. And I'm not going to send my people to negotiate with you, because who knows if they're going to return safely. And who knows if in an hour you'll still be the leader of Iran, or you'll be on the bottom of a ditch someplace."
Yeah, he says we're extremely hopeful. If you look at the Iranian economy now, they're on the ropes. They're having hyperinflation. They're running out of food. They're running out of water also, right? They're drying up. He told the White House report. The leadership of a country that cares all about its citizens should make a deal. But I don't think they do care about their citizens, Dick. You know,
they don't. Well, why should they? They killed 40,000.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they put
so many more die.
Right. They put things in their schools so we can't bomb them, type of thing. They're horrible people. The blockade is an extension of the U.S.-Israeli military campaign against Iran, launched in February. But I got to tell you another thing. I believe. I think he's going to sit back. He's going to lighten up on putting our troops there or really being a big influence. And if Netanyahu devastates Iran, Trump will go, oh, geez, look what happened. I didn't want him to do that. And he's going, okay, thank you. Right. Thank you very little.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I think that would be a smart move, too.
Now, while all that's going on, the Democrats are intent on being pro-Iranian. They are warning Trump that he better act in the next 60 days or his power under the War Powers Act will foreclose actions.
Well, how long is that?
Well,
90 days. Was it
60 days?
From when he started?
When he started,
It's already 60 days, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what the Democrats are saying. But Senate Republicans managed to reject what was the sixth bipartisan attempt on Thursday to limit Trump's Iran war powers since the conflict began more than 2 months ago. But the results foreshadowed obstacles ahead for members of his party over a legal deadline. The vote underscored growing Republican frustration with the war, and of course there is, but Trump is playing it perfectly. He's sitting back there and saying, I'm not going to be pressured into a rotten deal. I'm going to insist on getting Iran no nuclear sites. I want the nuclear material turned over to a third country controlled basically by the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to sit here and make you starve until such time as you come around.
And once again, Susan Collins, right, of Maine, centrist for a re-election, and voted to advance the resolution for the first time since nearly all Democrats and Senate Rand Paul began forcing votes to require congressional approval for the thing. That deadline is not a suggestion. It's a requirement, Collins wrote in a statement. Further military action against Iran must have a clear mission. Yeah, get rid of the terrorists that want to kill us and blow up the world with nuclear bombs. I voted, this is her again, I voted to end the continuation of these military hostilities at this time until such a case is made. Josh Hawley, a populist conservative, told the Washington Examiner he may soon consider supporting a war powers resolution contingent on what the administration does next.
This is all such nonsense.
Nonsense.
And it's basically the Democrats and a few Republicans threatening to do Iran's bidding and to force Trump's hand into signing a deal that basically slaps Iran on the wrist but lets them continue with nuclear power. They'll never say that, they won't admit it, but it's the absolute truth.
I just don't get it. And Lisa McCaughey also getting into the fray. The latest war powers resolution needed a simple majority and failed to advance 47 to 50.
And John Fetterman, who I'm increasingly liking,
yeah, me too,
voted for it and wants to continue this war until we win. If Pearl Harbor happened now, the Democratic Party would demand the war powers resolution to go after Japan, go after Germany.
Right.
And they would impose a 60-day deadline. And if it wasn't achieved within 60 days, you have to pull your troops out. Thank God there wasn't that years ago.
So Trump's team's considering to request congressional authorization for the war. Trump can grant himself a one-time 30-day extension subject to limitations on offensive operations. War Secretary Pete Hegseth, who's fantastic right now, just said Thursday to the Senate Arms Committee that the administration believes the ongoing ceasefire paused the 60-day countdown clock, which began when the White House officially notified Congress of the war on March 2nd. That occurred 2 days after the first U.S. airstrike on February 28th. The perceived timetable echoes an argument made by Republicans that the president is actually weeks away from the 60-day of active conflict and therefore can continue without Congress intervening.
And that's the key point. Lindsey Graham is right about this. He said Trump should ignore the war powers deadline and should insist on finishing this job.
Right.
He said,
and the Democrats scoffed at the notion, countering that the U.S. blockade in the Strait is hostile act of war. Really, it's absurd. Andy Kim, Democrat of New Jersey, a blockade is this person saying this. A blockade is an act of war. Does he not know that? He's supposed to be the secretary and the leader of our military. He's talking about Hegseth, obviously.
Yeah, but the Democrats are absolutely. They're like the guy that stepped in a bear trap and is caught, and then goes back to be sure that he's caught, to make sure that his foot is in the trap, and that he is in fact immobilized. And the Democrats are fighting like hell to stand there and to insist that Trump end a totally popular war, that he's winning, that he's going to win without the loss of any American lives, with no combat casualties. He's going to pull off a miracle. And the Democrats' approach is to reject it and to say this would violate the War Powers Resolution.
On the rocks, right, she talked about we got bin Laden, whatever it was, 20 years ago. I don't even know what it was. Doesn't matter. And we're back in the same spot right now where terrorists are coming at us and these guys want to kill us and blow up Israel in the world. It's 50 years now. It's pretty much close to 50 years that Iran wants to do this to us. I don't understand why a Democrat wouldn't say, even if they hate Trump, wow, getting rid of these nuclear bombs, he's not going to kill us.
And the polling shows that the American people agree with Trump on this, that they want Iran not to have nuclear weapons. They want him to stop Iran from getting the bomb. They want the war to continue. And it shows that they don't care about the slight increase in gas prices. They just hate Trump,
and that's all that matters. We hate Trump, and we want to make him look bad, and even though this war could help the whole world be safer, we don't like it because Trump has something to do with it. That's just horrible. The War Powers Resolution of 73 gives the president a 60-day grace period to conclude. Well, we went over that already. Ultimately, I would defer to the White House and the White House counsel on that. However, we are in a ceasefire right now. I don't know if that's really real, which by our understanding means 60-day clock pauses. I didn't know that. Or stops in a ceasefire. Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that. If you're in a ceasefire.
And on top of that, the bill itself is unconstitutional. Now,
the War Act?
Yeah, the War Powers Act.
It's unconstitutional? Oh, I know what you said earlier.
Now, while this is going on, Trump is fighting with Germany over the outrageous comments of Merz, the Chancellor for Germany, saying that the war in Iran had become a quagmire, using a phrase that was used to describe Vietnam. And Trump was furious about that. What the hell do you mean a quagmire? We've knocked out their Air Force. We've knocked out their Navy. We've knocked out their security forces.
All in a month.
People are starving. And what the hell do you mean a quagmire? What isn't a quagmire? Some congressional hearing when you can walk into it in the safety of a room?
Yeah, right.
Trump is out there protesting it, stopping Iran from getting the bomb, and the Democrats are calling it a quagmire.
And even Spain, she said some pretty nasty stuff as far as the NATO thing and whatnot, and Trump wants them out of NATO.
Well, what Trump is really saying to Europe is, put up or shut up.
Yeah, put up or shut up.
You can't sit back and demand that we defend you, and then go ahead and do everything you can to stop us.
Right.
And he's punishing Germany by taking 5,000 troops out of Germany. He's going to punish Spain and Italy as well. And this is just these leftist chancellors trying to appease to their voters and trying to say that they're standing up to Donald Trump. But in fact, what he's doing is tremendously popular and tremendously important.
So anyway, Talk about with Spain. First of all, she wouldn't let our planes. She said she doesn't want any of our military in Spain, even though we have bases there.
With Spain, there's also the factor of coercion. Spain is a unique country in that when Al Qaeda bombed the Spanish train and killed dozens of people, Spain's reaction was to surrender and to give in to Al Qaeda. And you're seeing that going on now. And Trump is saying, these are our allies, these are the people we're supporting. The other thing to understand about the troop withdrawal is the reason these troops were there in the first place was supposedly to stop communist aggression. But there was an ulterior motive, which is that we wanted to stop Germany from going fascist again, from going back to being Nazi. And we didn't thoroughly trust it. And we felt that American troop presence was necessary to stop backsliding.
So let's talk about this thing. Trump said Thursday he would probably consider withdrawing troops from Italy and Spain, broadening a potential drawdown in Europe after the day of signaling plans to cut forces in Germany. Trump's comment came in response to a question about whether reductions could extend beyond Germany, where he said this week in the United States is likely to scale back its military presence. Reuters reported that Trump indicated Washington is reviewing troop levels in Germany, which hosts the largest contingent of U.S. forces in Europe and serves as a key logistic and operations hub. The potential pullback follows a public clash with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz over the Iran war, with the two leaders trading sharp remarks over strategy and allied support. Trump has criticized Berlin and other NATO allies for what he sees as insufficient backing of U.S. efforts tied to the conflict and security of the Strait, according to
the Straits are to give Europe oil.
Yeah.
The U.S. doesn't need the Straits.
Right.
The U.S. has 14 million barrels a day that we do onshore. The only reason we're fighting to keep the Straits open, the only reason we give a damn, is Germany and Europe. And here they're saying that we're walking into some kind of quagmire by doing that.
Trump said earlier this week he would likely move to reduce the troops following the dispute escalating. Reuters and others outlets have noted that any reduction in Germany could have ripple effects across Europe, where tens of thousands of U.S. troops are stationed, including significant deployment in Italy and Spain. Trump has repeatedly questioned the value of maintaining large U.S. force levels in allied countries, arguing that partners should take on more of the cost and responsibility for their own defense. Defense analysts cited in prior coverage warned that a broad withdrawal could complicate U.S. power projection and logistics, given Europe's role as a staging ground.
It also would mean that there are a lot of U.S. servicemen not spending money in Germany and not spending money in Spain. And it's an effort to keep them there for their economies.
Right.
And they're no longer really necessary, but we keep them there as a defense against communism, officially, but in fact also as a way of bolstering their economy.
Let's go to Greg in Michigan. Hey, Greg in Michigan.
Hi, Greg.
Let's go to Sandra, our good friend Sandra, playing the piano.
No, I'm not playing the piano. Not today. But, I called because I haven't heard very much going on in Minnesota with the fraud stuff going on. And then this week, I read something I found very interesting. A former trooper, 30 years as a trooper, now he's an investigator. He was a former investigator for the Human Services, under Tampon Tim. Basically, he testified on April 22nd saying that they told him to hide all his findings. He can't show it, and they threatened him, and they said that all the things that he found he can't tell, and he was really pressured a lot. He was doing his job, and his whole department ended up getting squashed. So I'm thinking, if this honorable man came forward and told this story, how he was doing his job honestly and got threatened for doing so, I would imagine other people just like him are in a similar position. Mm-hmm. So, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's so interesting how this scandal in Minnesota has metastasized into a major national scandal involving California and probably torpedoing Gavin Newsom's pretensions to be president. It used to be that welfare cheating took place here and there and was the act of unscrupulous individuals who needed to be punished. What's now coming out is that when the Democrats switched to electronic benefit cards for food stamps and other forms of automating the program, all they were doing really was to make it easier to steal and to hide it, and that the theft had reached incredible proportions. In fact, what's going on here is an effort to put entire states on food stamps. And you have a perfect example of journalistic bias on WABC radio. A few minutes ago, there was a story ran on this station in the news broadcast, not done locally by the New York folks, but nationally, that said, oh my God, 3 million people have lost food stamps under Trump. Well, whoopee, yay.
That's the
3
idea.
million more jobs created, 3 million more people who don't need food stamps.
Right.
And the liberal press spins that as to what a disaster.
What a heartbreak.
Can't get food stamps.
Right. It's a heartbreak that they lose it, but it's not great thing happening that they have jobs. Let's go to Jerry. Oh, thank you, Sandra, by the way. Let's go to Jerry in South Carolina. Okay, how about we go to Patrick in Indiana? Hello, Patrick.
Hello. I want to talk about, again, deporting Mandani.
Man-dummy.
President Trump, when he first came to the White House, President Trump condescended to him. He was saying that if there's any problems in New York, we'll take care of them. But he should have had Tom Homan there to deport him because he said he agrees with international law. And to get into this country, he had to say he agreed with constitutional law because we've never had anything to do with international law. And when Trump went into Venezuela, he called the White House and said, this is a violation of international law.
Yeah.
And on January 2nd, according to James Flippin, the newsman, he had it on at 9 o'clock that Mandani had said that it's about time we incorporate international law.
Yeah.
So that means that since they did, that means that if the World Court says something is wrong, and
I don't mean to interrupt you, Patrick, but ask any 5 Venezuelans you meet,
right,
if it's okay with them that Maduro got arrested.
That's right,
and they all say yes. They cheer him in
550.
It's the most popular thing Trump has done.
Listen, we're on a hard break. We have to go, and we'll talk to you when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DeBarros Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. This was the week that the economy turned around. This was the week when you have to be an ostrich, a Democratic ostrich, putting your head in the sand to ignore the change. This week, the applications for unemployment benefits dropped by 26,000 down to 189,000.
No, it went from 189,000 to 26,000.
Yeah, and right.
they declined.
Dropped 26,000.
Right.
And this was the week that it became clear that the U.S. economy is doing great, the growth rate is doing great, the Trump economic policies are working, and these jobless claims are down, not because of Trump cuts, but because of employment, including weeks that were exactly equal to the latest reading. Claims have been at or below this level only 29 times or more in more than 3,000 weeks, or the history of the program. The 4-week moving average, which smooths out week-to-week volatility, fell to 207,000, indicating that layoffs remain unusually low by historical standards. And jobless claims have reduced so significantly. We have our lowest level of unemployment since 1969.
67.
The only thing that's lasted longer is the regime in Iran.
My 68 Camaro convertible.
So, what more proof did the Democrats need that Donald Trump's economic policies are working? And this is during a war. This is during an oil price increase. This is during an oil embargo. All of this growth is taking place. It's unbelievable. And it's very clear that the economic program passed in the big, beautiful bill is working like gangbusters. And I think that it, to me, is very clear that Trump is going to win Congress. What more is the guy got to do? He's got a Nazi running in Maine as a Democrat.
That's so
guy
messed
with a
up.
Nazi tattoo. Talk about a voter ID program. Just open your shirt and let's see what kind of tattoos you have on your chest.
Oh, that's
and
so
we'll determine how loyal. And
I got to tell you,
right.
when I was growing up, 70s or whatever, and, I was painting motorcycles for Chucky Zito and the Hells Angels, and, guys with tattoos were the bad dudes. They were the badass dudes in the Bronx and Manhattan. Now everyone's got a tattoo. You got a little 7-year-old girls with tattoos now. It's not the same. It used to be like badass. You had a tattoo, a tat on you,
Now, while the U.S. Supreme Court is handing the election for Congress to Donald Trump, the Florida legislature on Wednesday approved a reconfigured congressional map that will help Republicans win an additional 4 seats in the House of Representatives. So, you have 4 extra Republican seats in the House. You've got 20 districts that are majority-minority districts that have to be redrawn. You've got the economy growing rapidly, 2% unemployment. We're winning the war in Iran. Nobody's been killed. There are no American troops at risk. What's the president got to do?
What's he got to do? It's unbelievable.
What is also unbelievable is how overtly the Democrats are calling for Trump's assassination.
Oh, that's so horrible.
One of the members of the Federal Reserve Board had a tattoo, not a tattoo, but a design on his website or something that said 8647.
8647.
Which means kill President Trump.
Get him out. You know where that comes from? 86?
No.
Back in Prohibition, which was that, in 1920, I think, in Manhattan, you had speakeasies, right? And these speakeasies were quiet, and the feds would raid them once in a while. There was one on Wall Street, and I don't remember. I think it's Wall Street and Broad on the corner, one building. And it was, let's just say it was 40 Wall Street, and it was 86 Broad. It was the address on the side door of the same building. When the bartender got a call or a guy came in and said, we're going to get raided, the bartender would say, go out the side door. And that was number 86. And after a while, he would say, go out the 86 door. And after a while, it became 86 it. And that's where 86 it comes from. Get rid of it.
But more and more Democrats are caught advocating 86ing Donald Trump.
Horrible.
And it's incredible, but to overtly recommend the assassination of the president, that has spun into more and more public view as a result of the shooting at the Correspondents' Dinner. It's just incredible.
It's just horrible. And the Democrats and so many people, they look at it as a movie. I'm telling you, people go, oh, good for him. I'm too bad he's not dead already. And I know where this comes from. Other than they're evil and horrible people and morons and useful idiots, it comes from the video games that I was at somebody's house once and her husband was watching the video game. And there's a 50-year-old guy watching a video game thing, and they're showing a guy with a gun blow the guy's head off, and the brains go into the wall, and you see the red, or a guy falls off a bridge and hits a cement thing, and you splatters, and it's graphic. You see like stuff coming. It was just horrible. To me, this is that's part of it, other than the evil that the Democrats are just stupid people, and the devil can go after stupid people.
And speaking about stupid people, Jerome Powell announced that he will remain on the Fed's board of governors even after his term is over as chairman, breaking with tradition at the central bank and preventing Trump from quickly nominating his replacement.
Powell, who was holding his last press conference as Fed chairman, previously said he would remain on the Fed board until the Justice Department investigation into him ended. Oh, was he going a little on the side? On Wednesday, he confirmed that his plans to remain on the board while his term as chairman ends on May 15th. His term as a member of the board runs until 2028.
So this guy not only screwed up our economy by raising rates more than he should, lowering them less than he should, and permitting inflation to go crazy under Biden. And then he wouldn't resign as Fed chairman.
Who appointed him?
Trump. Mm-hmm. Trump in his first term. And what he's now saying is that this boondoggle where he was renovating and rebuilding the Federal Reserve headquarters, and we don't know this yet, but very possibly skimming money from it.
Oh, God.
He won't leave as a board member so that nobody will find out what he did with that money.
He says, my decisions on these matters will continue to be guided entirely by what I believe is in the best interest of the institution and the people we serve. That's what Powell said. After my term as chair ends, I will continue to serve as a governor for a period of time to be the term. We have to take a break, and we'll get back to you soon.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DeBarros Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
And we're going to get into this, the Democrats' tie for battle and conquer. Before that, I just want to mention that story, the news story about AI isn't ready to take over bull. AI is way more advanced than that lady just said on that news
helping us do the show today.
Yes, but it's so more advanced. And it will be in another 2 and 6 months. Anyway, but
the Harvard X poll, which is run by Mark Penn, who used to be my colleague when we both worked for Bill Clinton, has completely set to rest the concept that the Democrats have a big advantage heading into the midterm.
The poll basically, registered voters found that 50% are likely to vote Democrat and the other half are likely Republican. Democrats have had an advantage with independents, 52% of whom said they would vote Democrat. Of those polls, 71% say they are definitely or probably going to vote. Among Republicans voters, 62% said they'd definitely vote, and 18% they probably would. I'm missing something here. For Democrats, 59% said they would definitely vote, while 17% said they would probably. Half of the registered voters polled said they thought President Trump is performing better than former Joe Biden. Really? Trump's approval rating among registered voters was 42% in the poll.
Historically, this poll, the question, the generic ballot question.
What? No, whatever.
historically, the generic ballot question tends toward the Democrats. And the fact that now Trump has broken through into an absolute tie in this question between April 23rd and 26th shows the enormous trend toward Trump. This is not just predicting a narrow win in the midterm elections for Trump. This is predicting an enormous win. Because if you read this data properly, if the generic ballot has now moved to 50-50 from its normal level, which is a 4 or 5 point Democratic win, you are talking about a wipeout for Trump. Next time you hear the left talking about raising taxes, which is almost every day and twice on Tuesdays.
Twice on Tuesday.
Toss in their face this statistic about the incompetence and fraud of federal welfare programs. $57 billion is taken up in Medicare fraud. 37 million
billion,
in Medicaid
billion,
fraud.
Billion.
37 billion in Medicaid fraud.
Right.
11% in earned income tax credit fraud. 10 billion in food stamp fraud. And the 19 programs with improper payment rates in excess of 10%. This is all from the Government Accounting Office. That is basically showing that fraud is not just something that happens occasionally here or there. It's a systematic method of administering of these programs by the Democratic Party.
It's unbelievable. Let's go to Linda in Connecticut. Hi, Linda in Connecticut.
Hi, Doug and Dick. I just called because when you were talking about Spain and Germany, I use a bank called Webster Bank, which is a New England bank, and I also am a stockholder there. And I've learned that a Spanish bank, Banco Santander, is buying out Webster Bank. And this is supposed to take place later on in the year. And from what I've been able to glean, they are wanting, I guess they have a lot of money, and they are wanting a larger presence in America.
Like they
so I don't know.
Presence. Right.
Pardon me?
They have a big presence in America.
So
I'm sure they do, but they're wanting a larger one. So I didn't know if you were aware of this or
no, now we
what
are.
Your thoughts were.
Thank you so much, Linda. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Iranians feel the pain as their economy descends into a death spiral, the Wall Street Journal. War has imposed a heavy cost on Iran's economy. The question is how much more pain Iran's leaders are willing to tolerate as they try to negotiate. Well, Trump is pretty much given as much pain as he can give them, and probably...
No, he could be actually bombing them.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what the story is that Trump said, I'll bomb you back to the Stone Age. And I'll particularly bomb your power plants, your electric grid, your highways, your bridges, your roads. And it'll take you decades to recover from my bombing. And the world went crazy and said, you're winning the war. Why are you doing that? And Trump basically was persuaded. He said, okay, I am winning the war. I'm not going to bomb you to the Stone Age.
Thank you for a beautiful show, Dick Morris. It's an honor, as Rob Smith would say. It's an honor to be here. And thank you, Roxana, for On the Rocks. And Trump's going to give free drinks to Iran so they all get bombed.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Oh, it's out of here. Home run Ferry Hawks.
Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball.
Come out to the ballpark as the Ferry Hawks welcome in the Charleston Dirty Birds May 5th through the 10th. Grab the kids and come on out. We kick it off on Tuesday, May 5th with Cinco de Baseball with $5 tickets and $5 food and beverage specials. And we end the week as we celebrate all moms on Mother's Day. Moms get in free. Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.